Tonight, we're on the brink of a major economic showdown. On August 1st, 2025, President Trump's sweeping new tariffs, 30% on EU and Mexico, 35% on Canada, are set to hit, threatening to upend global trade. Allies call it protectionism, the US calls it self-defense. Negotiations are tense and the gap is wide. The world is watching. Will diplomacy win out, or are we headed for a costly trade war that could hit everything from big corporations to family farms? The stakes are enormous and the clock is ticking. At the heart of this conflict is President Trump's belief that America's been shortchanged by its trading partners. He's argued for years that the US has been taken advantage of, claiming that previous administrations allowed other countries to benefit at America's expense. Trump's approach is rooted in the idea that the US must act aggressively to protect its own interests, even if it means shaking up the global order. He points to massive trade deficits, like the EU's $200 billion surplus, as proof that US jobs have been lost to unfair trade. These deficits, he says, are not just numbers on a balance sheet, but evidence that American workers and industries are being undercut by cheaper foreign goods. Trump often highlights how these imbalances have grown over decades, fueling a sense of urgency to act now. The administration's goal is clear: make imports pricier, boost American manufacturing, and force companies to bring jobs home. By imposing tariffs, Trump hopes to level the playing field for US businesses, making it more attractive for companies to produce goods domestically rather than overseas. Supporters argue this could revitalize industries that have struggled for years, from steel to automobiles, and restore pride in products labeled "Made in the USA." Trump shrugs off warnings about higher prices, insisting tariffs are leverage, not a tax on consumers. He claims that foreign exporters will absorb most of the cost, and that any short-term pain for American shoppers will be outweighed by long-term gains. Critics, however, warn that consumers could end up paying more for everyday goods, from groceries to electronics, as companies pass on the extra costs. The tariffs also generate billions in revenue, which the administration touts as making other countries pay for market access. This money, Trump argues, can be used to support American farmers and industries hurt by retaliatory measures. The administration frames this as a win-win, punishing unfair trade practices while bringing in funds to help those affected at home. But America's allies argue these moves break international rules and threaten the global trading system. They warn that escalating tariffs could spark trade wars, disrupt supply chains, and damage relationships that have taken decades to build. Many fear that the uncertainty could slow economic growth worldwide, hurting not just the US, but its partners as well. For Trump, it's a necessary correction. For others, it's a dangerous gamble. As the world watches, the stakes are high, not just for the US economy, but for the future of global trade itself. The outcome of this bold strategy remains uncertain, leaving businesses, workers, and governments around the world bracing for what comes next. The EU and Canada aren't backing down. They're preparing tough countermeasures in response to recent US trade actions. Both regions are determined to show that they won't be pushed around, and are working together to craft a powerful response that will be felt across the Atlantic. Their message is clear: if the US escalates, they're ready to hit back just as hard. The EU's list targets $72 billion in US goods, a massive sum that demonstrates just how serious they are about defending their economic interests. This isn't just a symbolic gesture. These tariffs are designed to have real impact, affecting a wide range of American exports. The EU is zeroing in on politically sensitive sectors like aviation, technology, and agriculture, industries that are not only vital to the US economy, but also to key American states and districts. By targeting these areas, the EU hopes to create pressure where it matters most. Iconic American products, Harleys, bourbon, oranges, are in the crosshairs, chosen for their symbolic value and their economic importance. These are products that represent American culture and industry, making their selection a pointed statement. The goal is to put direct pressure on US lawmakers, especially those representing regions that rely on these industries. By hitting where it hurts politically, the EU and Canada hope to force a change in US policy. Canada is readying its own retaliation, standing shoulder to shoulder with the EU. Canadian leaders have made it clear that they will not hesitate to defend their workers and industries, and are preparing a list of countermeasures that could be enacted swiftly. Canada has a history of targeting everything from steel to orange juice, and is expected to focus on products that will have the greatest impact on American exporters. Their approach is strategic, aiming to maximize leverage in negotiations. This united front signals that America's closest allies are willing to fight back, even if it means enduring some economic pain themselves. The message is one of solidarity and resolve. The consequences could be severe: higher prices, supply chain disruptions, and uncertainty for businesses and consumers on both sides of the Atlantic. Yet, both the EU and Canada seem prepared to accept these risks if it means defending their interests. The tit-for-tat strategy risks repeating past trade wars, where escalating tariffs led to economic downturns and long-lasting damage to industries and jobs. In previous disputes, US farmers and manufacturers took heavy hits, with lost markets and shuttered factories. The fear is that history could repeat itself if a compromise isn't found soon. As each side digs in, the path to a diplomatic solution becomes more complicated. The stakes are high and the world is watching to see who will blink first, or whether a new era of economic conflict is about to begin. Tariffs might sound like something that only affects big companies or politicians, but the truth is, they have a direct impact on your daily life, right down to your wallet and your job security. When you hear about new tariffs in the news, it's not just a distant policy debate, it's something that can change the prices you see at the store, the bills you pay each month, and even the stability of your job. Higher import taxes mean that the cost of everyday goods like clothing, electronics, and home appliances goes up. Retailers and manufacturers often pass these extra costs on to you, the consumer. So whether you're shopping for a new refrigerator or just picking up a pair of jeans, you'll likely notice your money doesn't go as far as it used to. For companies that depend on imported parts and materials, tariffs can mean much higher production costs. Some businesses try to absorb these costs, but many are forced to cut jobs, reduce hours, or even shut down entirely. Take Michigan's Howard Miller Company for example. Rising tariffs contributed to layoffs and factory closures, leaving workers and their families in a tough spot. Farmers are especially vulnerable. When other countries retaliate with their own tariffs, American agricultural exports can plummet. This means crops go unsold, barns fill up with inventory, and rural communities face economic hardship. Past trade wars have shown just how quickly tariffs can threaten the livelihoods of those who feed the nation. The uncertainty caused by tariffs doesn't just stop at the farm or the factory. Market volatility and economic unpredictability ripple through the entire economy, making business owners hesitant to hire new workers or invest in growth. This hesitation can slow down job creation and stall local economies. Ironically, the very policies designed to protect American jobs can sometimes put them at greater risk. As companies struggle to adapt, layoffs and hiring freezes become more common, and job seekers find fewer opportunities. For families and workers across the country, the effects of tariffs are immediate and deeply personal, impacting paychecks, job security, and the ability to make ends meet. As the August deadline nears, the world faces a stark choice: escalation or compromise. If talks fail, tariffs and counter-tariffs will disrupt supply chains, raise prices, and strain alliances. A last-minute deal is possible, but the gap remains wide and trust is eroding. The fallout could reshape not just economies but global power dynamics, weakening Western unity and empowering rivals. The future of global trade and millions of jobs hangs in the balance. The question now: can leaders step back from the brink, or are we headed for a new era of economic conflict?